Good morning. I think I'm actually live. Sorry for being late, all y'all. I'm still working on setting up new equipment. For those of you that know, I've actually been remodeled the entire studio. So let me start off properly by saying good morning, Einstein mothers, and welcome to Einstein Mothers new podcast. I'm calling it, and I'm open to suggestions, Einstein Mother's Daily Microdose Podcast. And the idea is that this is a place to discover your daily microdose of longevity wisdom. So this is to provide you with insights and strategies that you can begin to use in your life, your daily life, to be able to protect and restore the health of your children. Hi, I'm Arnold. I'm GB Arnold here on the set of Einstein Mothers, and I just invite you to join me Monday through Friday, ideally at 10:35 a.m. Central Standard Time, although I've been running a little bit late these first couple of episodes. This is actually day 9 of what's called the Audacious Challenge. But here in the daily microdose, this is to discover secrets to protect and restore the health of your family from the ravages of chronic disease. And Einstein mothers believe we do that by starting with your children. We start that with your grandchildren. We start it with your great-grandchildren. Einstein mothers officially launched the Audacious Challenge on June 21st on the summer solstice. And the Audacious Challenge it's big and it's bold, and it was inspired by a single question. But the Audacious Challenge is to end childhood chronic disease in America by December 21st, 2035, a short 12 years and 6 months from now. This challenge was inspired by a single question. It was posed to me on February 11th, 2012. I just taught an express hot yoga class. I toweled up, and my good friend CJ Haynes posed the question that was being asked by Anadarko Petroleum. Why are kids getting sicker and sicker and sicker at younger and younger ages with the chronic disease that were once reserved for the elderly? My immediate answer was, well, CJ, that's easy. It's chemicals in our air, chemicals in the water that we drink, the water we cook with. It's the water that we bathe our children in. And it's also the chemicals and harmful contaminants in the food we eat. And so I jumped in. It was a little bit later after that I decided to jump in, and it was on June 6th, in fact, June 6th of that same year, 2012, that I metaphorically burned my boat, and I set out on this epic adventure, truly epic adventure, to look for the solution, to a solution to what I call now this $50 trillion riddle. And that's simply, when we can accomplish ending childhood chronic disease in America, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, if you will, it's about $50 trillion over the next 12 and a half years. Currently, America spends $3.9 trillion a year on treating the symptoms of chronic disease. Well, that's staggering. And especially when you consider that 1 in 2 Americans are suffering from one or more chronic diseases, and 40% of our children, our babies, are suffering at younger and younger ages with these chronic diseases that were once reserved for the elderly. And so on June 21st, just about 9 days ago, Einstein Mothers officially launched the Audacious Challenge. And it was a 6-day challenge of sharing with you the strategy, kind of the vision of it really was a backstory. I would say the first 6 days was introduction of me, who I am, and who am I to have the audacity to try to solve a $50 trillion riddle, right? Well, I'm just an average guy. Just an average guy that has even a learning disability. I grew up with dyslexia, so whatever I've achieved in life, which may not be much, but it's I've had to work twice as hard as anybody else I know to be able to do the things that I've done. And I have some interesting experiences over the last 61 years of my time on the planet. In fact, over the last 11 years, I have effectively invested 70,000 hours over those 11 years. It's equivalent to about a 40-year career, work career that I've shoved into an 11-year box on the hunt, the race to find the solutions. I call them secret solutions. Why? Because nobody really knows about them. And if they know about them, they're not really applying them. It's like, so we're dealing with a couple of issues. Ignorance, we just don't know. And then the worst is willful ignorance. That's when we know, but we don't do. And so I think it's important that we both learn and then we do. And then after we learn and do and learn and do and learn and do, we might have enough knowledge and experience to be able to teach others, to show others the way. That's the Einstein Mother's motto. We believe that if we learn these things, we understand them, that will lead us to wise actions. And then as we learn them and do them, then hopefully we'll get to a place that we can inspire others to do the same. Because chronic disease is a really, really big issue in America. And I personally can't think of anything that we all could be focusing on. This may be, I call the moonshot moment. This is this generation's call to action, the clarion call to wake up. I mean, if you've been watching for a while, the planet, the water on the planet is rising. The earth is on fire. And this is the call to action to do something. And I don't believe that we can all agree upon what to do externally for the globe, for climate change or global warming, which I don't recommend. Einstein Mothers recommends substituting the sixth mass extinction. Anytime you hear climate change, the sixth mass extinction. Anytime you hear somebody talk about global warming, insert the sixth mass extinction. That should hopefully give you a sense of the urgency of what is at stake. So over the last 11 years, I've been looking at really those underlying root causes. I've got 30 years in the health and wellness profession and industry. And it all started with a call from my mother back in, ironically, February 11th, 1994. I was living in Berlin, Germany at the time. I was working for Department of Defense, managing the U.S. Army Officers Club, the Harnack House, for those of you that know, are in the military or veterans or might have even been living and working in Berlin. I had a great time. I loved it. I was also just beginning to do import, export, I guess more importing or importing goods into the newly collapsed Soviet Union. So I loved my life in Berlin. I was there for 5 years, and then I got the call from my mother. And my mom, she shared with me tragic news that I had never imagined I would be hearing. She said, "Arnie, your father's in the hospital, and he's suffering from respiratory issues." You see, my father had chronic respiratory issues, was diagnosed 8 years prior to this with emphysema. And so, he'd been suffering for a while, but it wasn't until the fires from the Mexican wildfires of 1994, this bad air blowing into the Gulf Coast. And it's nothing like we're seeing in the Northeast right now. Oh, by the way, but it was bad enough that it triggered a respiratory emergency for my father. So he landed in the ICU, and, he hadn't been well for quite some time. And so when I got the news that my father was not going to make it, that was my call to action. That was my first call to action. And I went, okay, I'll take care of this. It took a couple of months for me to wrap up my affairs and ship my stuff back to America. And I landed back in America it was April 1st, 1994. And that was a day of actually great celebration, because the day that I landed in Houston, it was a day that my father was discharged from the ICU. And here I was coming home to bury my father. And now here I am actually having an opportunity to spend time with him. And so I had a burning desire to heal my father. I mean, of course I was ignorant. I was naive. I knew nothing about emphysema. I just knew that he was sick. I knew that he had a big distended belly. I knew that he couldn't breathe, but I believed that there were solutions. And so he and I worked together, starting off with a diet. I think with most of us, when we're in the health and wellness emergencies of our life, we've gained too much weight, we're not doing well. I think that the standard go-to, protocol, so it's what all the health coaches are teaching, and the wellness coaches and the longevity coaches, and all the people that are trying to sell you another supplement and magic pill and magic potion. Well, I'm like, that's all fine and good, but that's where I started. I started in the same place that everybody else starts. And so I kind of first book I got when I landed was called The Cure for All Diseases. I thought, with a title like that, how could you go wrong? And so what I would do is I'd just devour this book. I would just read the book, and then I would apply the protocols the book was teaching. And then I would if I thought it was merit and made sense, I would then teach my father. I would learn it, I would do it, and then I would teach it. Learn, do, teach. Learn, do, teach. That's the three magic words of how we can begin to make a difference in this world, and how we can eradicate chronic disease. And so we kind of stumbled on, Hippocrates' ancient wisdom. The two that I think most of you will be familiar with is the one, let food be thy medicine, and let medicine be thy food. The one that I took to heart or to gut, was all diseases begin in the gut. And so here I am, I'm looking at my father's big distended gut, and I'm like, that's got to go, because clearly it's influencing his breathing. I mean, obviously his diaphragm cannot possibly be working, all of his respiratory muscles weren't working. Let's get rid of the gut, and then we can re-engage his diaphragm. We can then begin to work on breathing practices. I mean, I always think about breathing back far before all the books that are on my shelf, were ever written. And so, we landed on a high fiber Mediterranean diet, and then I was fairly big into sort of macro or sort of macro doses of micro and nanonutrients. I kind of I really leaned into this idea that how much of the diseases that we're suffering are results of just not being deficient in macronutrients, nanonutrients, and micronutrients, right? So let's start there. Let's make sure that we plug the holes, so to speak, in making sure that we had all of the nutrition on board necessary for the body to begin to heal itself. We made progress. His colon definitely responded, but it wasn't long after we had started this that I kind of knew there was more. There was more to this equation. And I would my just for reference sake, my family lives in Lake Jackson, Texas, and so that's where I had spent time with my father. And on the weekends, I would typically drive up to Houston, and I'm a big fan of organic foods and fresh juices, and so I found myself at the Whole Foods on Voss, and that's where I met my first guide on this great journey. Her name was Audrey. And, it was like meeting a long lost friend that I just met. And so we were in a deep conversation. And at some point it came around to talking about massage therapy. And I remember when I was in the Navy on a nuclear powered submarine 100 years ago, I was in Sasebo, Japan, and had my first experience in a Japanese bathhouse, and the whole process of bathing rituals delicious food. And then I got my first Japanese massage. I'm here today to tell you that that was a life-changing experience. I don't remember how long it was, but it was after I, did the whole bathing ritual and I was relaxed. I think I had a couple of beers, had some amazing Japanese noodles, and was called up to this third floor, where there were four women that were working on clients, and the rest of the room were these beds that were laid out, cots, and yummy blankets and silky pillows, and it was a dream, truly, especially at the young age of 19. That was 1981, I think, 1981 or 1982. So anyway, that was my first experience. And after my first massage, it was so amazing that I knew that I wanted to make other people feel that way. And now that may sound crazy, because, and in fact, when I tell people that even today, they go like, yeah, you're strange, because most people get a massage and go, I can't wait to get another one, right? Well, my deal was like, my God, I would love to learn how to do this to make other people feel this way, because I don't think no one's ever felt this way before. Again, young, naive 19-year-old. Well, the next day, on the last day that we were in Japan, I went to the local Navy exchange, and it's also known as the PX in the BX in the Navy. I think it's PX in the Army. Anyway, I showed up to the Naval Exchange, and I got my first book on shiatsu. I knew I knew nothing about this, and so if you could imagine, at the young age of 19, to discover a book like a shiatsu book, and now looking at the body through the lens of the meridian system, acupuncture points, and man, I was blown away. And so I would read the book and I would work on myself, and then would work on different people, my shipmates on the submarine, and just learning how to do this. And then I had kind of forgotten the whole process. And so that was at 81, and now here I am in 1994, so 13 years later. I rediscovered massage, and I had to flash back to that time in the Navy, and so here I am. I'm like, okay, I think, because let me also kind of back up, because at the time I was looking at this, I was thinking maybe I need to go into chiropractics. I thought chiropractics was going to be the quickest and shortest way to get a degree, a doctor, get credentials. And I thought the path of credentials was a way to gain authority, because I understand if you're a doctor, everybody listens to your doctor. And today we're listening to a whole bunch of chiropractors and osteopaths and a whole bunch of people teaching maybe not the most cutting edge science. And in fact, if you look at the motivation, oftentimes it's to sell you one of their supplement lines, or 100 or 500 supplements that they all want you to be buying and doing, which makes me crazy. So anyway, I don't want to take too many tangents and digress, because I'll forget the story. But I was thinking chiropractic was going to be the way to get there. And all I knew about chiropractic at the time was 26 vertebrae, right? I mean, that was like, the vertebrae's out of alignment, it's impinging on a nerve, get the vertebrae back in alignment, solve the problem. That was my very minimal understanding of chiropractics. Today I have a completely different understanding. I think there are chiropractors out there that are into acupuncture and to herbology and to all of these wide ranging holistic alternative, which are that's kind of an oxymoron. I mean, that's the way we've always, that's been medicine from the very beginning. Now here we are, it's like it's alternative. I mean, somehow we're back in that upside down world, right? Poison on food is the standard, and organic is somehow you got to pay extra for it. I mean, this is the insanity of the world that we live in. It's upside down and backwards. Upside down, and it's backwards. So how do we turn it right side up, and then bring it forward, right? That's our goal. That's a visual for the day. Right side up, and then get it to go forward. So so anyway, chiropractic, that was what I was thinking about. And then I stumbled upon Audrey. She talked about massage therapy, and that was like, wow, I remember that time in Japan, and I thought, okay, 26 vertebrae, or do I work on the 600-700 muscle systems, depending on who's doing the analysis. And I kind of thought, what if it's the muscle issues pulling on the vertebra, causing them to get out of line? So you've seen it, I'm sure. If you don't fix a muscle and you do the adjustment and you get the vertebra back in alignment, well, it's not too long before that muscle pulls it back out of place again. So, and I think that's really the case for chronic issues. I think for acute issues, you get in a car accident, you have a fall, you have an accident, go see your chiropractor and your acupuncturist, right? Get things back in alignment before the muscles, get set in. And now you've got a chronic condition, which is tough to pull back. And so this is one of the little secrets I'm going to drop along the way. These are the breadcrumbs that, we'll share. Prevention. Dollars of prevention, because it costs money. These aren't pennies. These are dollars, right? Let's be clear about that. It costs money. So dollars of prevention, but is worth a fortune of pharmaceutical drugs and a lifetime of horrible side effects. So I'm like, okay, yeah. Take care of yourself early on before you develop the chronic disease. Prevention is the solution. But look, most of us are sick because we were not ever taught the importance of prevention. It's not your fault, right? No one told you. In fact, most people didn't tell you because they didn't know. On and on and on and on. So here we are today. Prevention's the way to go. If you miss that and you're suffering, worse if your children are suffering, because now they're suffering for their entire life. Not you get old and and then you start getting sick and then you transition. You never get peak what is it, health quality, right? So you're starting off low on the scale of being 100%. I mean, you start off low and then it's like it's misery and pain the entire time. And I'll eventually get to not today, but I'll get to a whiteboard and be able to kind of do a diagram that explains what that looks like. Dr. Peter Attia, if you check his work out, he's got a graph that I think is great. We're going to modify that a little bit that kind of talks about that, not through the eyes of an elite longevity physician, but for the rest of us who can't afford, to some of the protocols and processes that these elite longevity physicians and practitioners are offering. It's like, how do we make that available for everybody? That's the goal. So we're going to take his model, which I think is brilliant, by the way. I love Peter Attia's work. I'm a big fan of Peter's. Hi, Peter. But again, we can take that, modify it so it looks like what society looks like. Okay, so back to massage. Went to massage school, took anatomy and physiology class. I'm like, okay, here we go. Let's kind of like start taking classes. I wanted to take a university level class as opposed to the anatomy and physiology that they taught in the massage school. I just thought it would be a bigger textbook and more information, not just geared towards massage, but the whole body. So I like I said, my mind's already wired. I see the body as meridians, thousands of meridians of acupuncture, pressure points. So now to get it through a Western perspective and looking at anatomy and physiology through Western science, another layer, another perspective. And the more perspectives that we add to our, the way we look at things, I think is helpful. I think it's helpful to be able to, have this perspective and then that perspective. And then when you combine them together, it's a bigger, more wholesome perspective. I think this is also one of the secrets that we'll talk about along the way. And so here I am, went to massage school, learning Swedish massage. That's what they were teaching. But I started getting into books like Janet Travell's book, Trigger Point Therapy, and Bonnie Prudent's book. And that's when the Swedish and Asian begin to merge. And that's when the lights begin to turn on. And so I'd go home on the weekends to work with my father. And man, I was blown away, y'all. Blown away. I mean, I could give my father a 1-hour massage, and he would get hours of relief. I mean, literally hours. And I mean, I was, like it was a testament of the power of laying on of hands. And so, when I look back at that time, I have regrets. I have serious regrets. It's a little tough to even admit this, because knowing how he benefited from that time, I didn't go home every day to give him relief. I got too busy, got caught up in my world. And so I've got regrets in my life. That's one of the top regrets. But before I get too mushy, so that was a big insight. The power of laying on of hands, and we've known about it for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, since the beginning of man. The power of touch. Ironically, the first thing I taught at a massage school was pregnancy massage. Actually, I didn't teach it. I was giving pregnancy massage, and I was teaching new mothers the power of infancy massage. And I think it was Janet Travell's book, maybe. And it was there that I discovered, the power of touch, the absolute essential power of touch. And I know you've seen the studies. And once I began to figure out how to do this, this work, I'm currently learning this. Oh, by the way, for those of you that know, this is I'm 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks into learning lighting and sound and video and live streaming and all of this. So thank you for your patience. I'm a novice, so don't judge me too harshly. At least not now. Give me some time. Give me some time to hone this new skill. With time, I know I'll get there, and every day feels better. But and I've lost my thought. That's one of the challenges of these tangents, is like, where was I in the conversation? So massage, giving my father massages, coming home, regretting not giving him massages every day. That was tough. And I at that point, going through life, doing my thing. And it was 4 years later. It was May. It was May like 15th of 1998. So now we've kind of, we're fast forward. Remember, I came home on April 1st, 1994. And now we're May of, what is that? 4 years effectively, of 1998. That's when my father took a turn for the worst. He got sick again, and he had real difficult time breathing. And I should backtrack now that another memory just jumped in my brain that I think is relevant, really important. Because it wasn't like he was fine and then he got sick and died. That 4 years, y'all, it was pain. My father was suffering. He was in misery for 4 years. His life was tethered to an oxygen machine, and his reach, he called it his ball and chain, because he would go from the bedroom to the bathroom to the kitchen. That was his scope of his world. And he would suffer from a thing called cluster headaches. I don't know if you know them. I've never experienced them. I pray I never do. I don't know what a migraine looks like. So I can't relate. He describes this experience as taking an ice pick and shoving it into his eye, into the center of his brain. He said that the pain would just be excruciating. And he would sit there on the kitchen table with this just bearing the suffering and the pain. Just so we're clear, when you watch somebody that you love go through that, if that doesn't motivate you to do something about it, check your humanity. Too busy, too tired, too overworked, overly entertained, 9-second, a 9-second attention span, right? So here I was watching my father suffer, and I would come home and help out, and eventually he did take the turn for the worse. And those of us that were there watching, it was time. Like, I never want to suffer like that. I never want to see anybody suffer like that. So it's like, that's the race. That's the run. Go figure out, go solve this. Go solve this problem. This is a problem we're solving. Let's end pain. Let's end suffering. Let's end misery. How about that? Now, how about we start with our children? They don't need to suffer from the diseases of old age when they're young, when they're babies. What are we doing, y'all? So anyway, I mean, these are the driving, motivating factors at the core of my being that drives me to do insane things like the Audacious challenge. Go solve the $50 trillion riddle. No. It's in pain, suffering, misery. And of all people, our children. Let's start there, kids. Let's start ending pain and suffering in our children. That's what we're about. That's the Einstein mother's way, right? So got the call, like this is it. And everybody knew this was like the final, right? Here we go. Come on. Called everybody up, called my grandma, my uncle Cleve, brought my grandmother down. Alan and Betty showed up. I think Janelda showed up. I don't remember Janelda. I'm pretty sure Dal, my uncle Dal showed up, D-A-L. And, we were, I'm pretty sure my Aunt Janelda showed up as well. Again, immediate family showing up because they're there to bid my father farewell. They were there to, to wish him Godspeed on this next leg of his eternal journey. I remember kind of showing up, kind of that bringing bread and wine, and cheese. I'm like, I'm going to go kind of eating good food and, drink. I want good memories of that final time because the hospital sucks, kids. It sucks. I don't go to hospitals unless I have to. I just recently got out of one with my mom. She was in the hospital for, in the ICU for 3 days with suffering from severe food poisoning. Another story for another time. Let me get back to the I think we're now pushing around May, 20th or so. We're all coming around. We're celebrating him. We're, spending time. We're shedding tears. We're hugging and loving, the family and all that. Like I said, I'm giving I'm smuggling in wine and cheese and bread for my dad. It's kind of like what I would want somebody to do for me, right? I think the everybody else in the room were a little bit aghast. I was giving him wine and cheese and bread, right? But it was the 20th, the evening of the 20th, that my dad's like, okay, you all got to go home because I don't know, 9:00, 9:30. It's like I got to get some rest, and so he sent everybody home. Like, I don't need anybody staying with me. I want peace and quiet and the room to myself. And so, we listened and we left. And the attending nurse showed up in his room the next morning, and she said she opened the door, came in to check on him. She said she walked in and that my father then opened his eyes, and then he looked at her, and then he smiled, a big, radiant smile. And then my father closed his eyes for the last time. And in the moment and in the twinkling of an eye, he was gone. He was gone. Gone. But today I'm here to say that he's never forgotten, because it was that seed that was planted in me on that day that was like, this is my mission in life. This is what I'm about. I don't think I really fully conceived that whole the scope of what this was, but I knew this was my new path. At the time I was in the hospitality management world. I have a degree from the Conrad Hilton School of Hotel Restaurant Management. I was managing this beautiful large U.S. Army Officers Club in Berlin, Germany. I was kind of living this life and had a career ahead of me. And then I took a hard left, and I'm like, okay, this is it, my new path. So, father dies, I go back to Houston, and I'm, living my life, going nowhere fast, hanging out with a bunch of single guys, having fun, but not really progressing. I was able to work 20 hours a week compared to their 40, 50, 60 hours a week and make the same, if not more money. And they, of course, a number of my friends, always had a little bit of a grudge against that, right? How are you making more money than me? And you're only working half time, right? Well, anyway, so I did the massage thing, and I was a little bit lonely, lost. And then the next guide showed up in my life, and it was inspired by one of my good friends at the time, Trish Millard, someone I love and adore and appreciate. Haven't seen Trish in a while. But she knew I was kind of struggling, and I needed some help kind of getting my books together. And so she recommended a friend, Linda Coleman. Linda Coleman was, again, one of my all-time favorite, definitely a guide, if not an angel. I think she probably reaches the angelic state on the journey that I've been on for the last 30 years. Linda's been helping me out. She knew I was kind of suffering with my father. I was looking for a relationship. I had not had a relationship since I was in Berlin effectively, so I knew I was ready. I was ready to be married, really, like looking for a wife. And at the time we were all hanging out at Second Baptist and, looking for a good Christian girl, because that's what every man needs, right? Good Christian girl. Eventually, it was shortly, before my father died, that she introduced me to this big-haired girl from Dallas, Jennifer Page, and we had long conversations. And she knew the struggle I was going through, and of course could feel the pain of the loss of my father. And one thing led to another, and after a year and a half, we courting long distance. She was a good Christian girl, and I was a good sinner from from wherever I was from. And but yeah, she there was something about her that was really nice. She's smart, and she's fun. I like Jen a lot. Jen was one of my all-time favorite people on the planet. One thing led to another. We get married. What day did we get married? We got married on September 11th, 1999. 9111999. For those of you that know me, I'm kind of obsessive about numbers and dates and the moon phases. I try to start every new venture on a new moon, for example. You're going to, why not? Always, you start planning on a new moon. I mean, I love using the almanac as a guide to getting our our lives in sync with nature as opposed to the artificial time and space that we've created. So 9/11, 1999. And ironically, 2 years later on our anniversary, on September 11, 2001, Jen and I had flights to go to New York City. And I would, a possibility that I could have day traded. I don't think I'd have day traded in the World Trade Center that day. They're across the river, maybe, or up at 42nd Street, the place, the Momentum Securities had partnered with another day trading firm. Anyway, I don't want to make these stories too long, but I think it's kind of fun to just kind of plant these seeds. I mean, there's all these synchronicities, these date, time, and marking space that I think are interesting. And it's something I just always pay attention to. So here I get 11, get married 9/11, 1999. 2 years later, we're flying to New York, where I could have been day trading, possibly in the World Trade Center. And this is our anniversary. So we're going to have a fun time in New York City. And then we get a call. Like, you're not going to leave. You got to turn the TV on. And of course, we witnessed what everybody else witnessed, and for days, mesmerized by what just happened. Well, here's something that's interesting. It turned out that the day trading firm that Jen was working for at the time had a office in the World Trade Center and had another office, kind of a central, I think it was a kind of a telecommunication hub in one of the other World Trade Center buildings. And they, of course, World Trade Center 1 or 2, wherever it was demolished, but there was damage in the other ones. And Jen was responsible for the insurance of the company. And so it was 2 weeks after all that happened. We were at ground zero. I can't even begin to describe what that was like. We've got credentials to go behind the barricades and to go into the space where it was apocalyptic. It was devastating. To this day, I mean, you can't get those images out of your head. Especially seeing my TV, that's one thing. But to see it live and in person, the stench that was in the air, the somberness, death all around you, it was devastating. I'm going to come back to the original story because but I just, as a marking time, I think it's also to kind of put a pin in these other parts of the experience. And it was a little bit after that. I think it was 2002. So we're now going to fast forward. So I'm married. Jen and I are married, and then she introduces me to this thing called Bikram yoga, and I'm like, and she's like, you probably could use this. I think a good friend of hers had turned her on to it, and she'd taken a few classes, and she said, Arnie, you need to check this out because I think your brain could use a little Bikram yoga, not to mention my body. I mean, just, exercising, sweating, all that kind of stuff. And so I went, I took class, and, I thought, yeah, this is an interesting practice. I don't think I liked it. It was 90 minutes. It's a freaking hot room. I went to Mike and Joni's studio here in Houston, South Boulevard studio, for those of you that are from Houston and have been there, practiced there. But I was committed, like, okay, I'll go. I think I committed 3 times a week. And so, actually felt pretty good after the 3rd or 4th time. And it was the 6th class in 2 weeks that had a neck injury that I could not resolve. It was from an auto accident, and I was in just constant, it was just a low level, constant pain. Well, in class, I don't know what it was, what I was doing, but all of a sudden, pain was gone. And I'm like, oh my God, this thing that I've been living with for 2 years is gone. Those of you that know me, might consider me a little bit rash, but it was like, okay, this is it. This is a new part of the plan. I mean, if it can heal a 2-year chronic injury, this is a path to wellness. So, and I came this close to just jumping I think they had a teacher training in, 3 or 4 weeks. And I thought, you know what, I'm pretty rash, but I don't think I need to be doing that. At the time, I was massaging full time, and I had a full time day trading schedule. I was putting in 4 hours every morning day trading, and I love day trading. By the way, day trading was fun. And unfortunately, I got into day trading right at the end of the collapse of the Nasdaq, which sucked, by the way. And if for those of you that remember, they took us after the collapse of the Nasdaq. They also changed it from fractions to decimals. So they took out the slop, because day traders were making their money on the arbitrage of the margin. So I'm like, I kind of missed the timing of two things. But look, and people I was hanging out with, $10,000, $20,000 a day. I mean, like, I was amazed. I'm like, okay, I gotta get into this. I went and studied for my Series 7 and 55 and 63, and like that was gonna be my new path. And once this downturn took place, because everybody had been trading in this bubble, right? I mean, it's just going up and out. You just gotta put your money in and wait for 10 seconds and pull it out and make $1,000 and check out if you want. So, I mean, that's how crazy day trading was back in the day. And so, of course, I got in right at the end when all the margins were taken out. The arbitrage was a lot more difficult, and I began to watch people blow up their accounts. I mean, people that were making a whole bunch of money could not do it in a downturn market without that sort of those, that fractions that they were, working with. So I kind of saw the handwriting on the wall pretty early on, and I cashed out my account, bought a Jeep, and paid, $10,000 towards Bikram yoga training. Bikram yoga training was grueling. It was intense and it was grueling, but it was part of the path. It was like, this is the path, right? And so, I'll try to speed this up because I could, of course, be here for 70,000 hours if I'm not careful. So did the Bikram yoga thing, open a studio in the Woodlands, Texas. Beautiful studio, Taj Mahal of Bikram yoga studios. Made some huge mistakes. Like, I spent way too much on, I built a way too big of a studio. I spent too much money on building like the finest of everything. I made a huge dumbass mistakes, pardon my Russian, in building the Taj Mahal on somebody else's property. This was in the Woodlands Mall. Man, what a crazy mistake. $750,000 to build it out, $1 million over 10 years in rent, and then nothing. Poof, gone. No land, no asset. No, I mean, like, kids, if you're paying attention, don't do that. Don't make that mistake. Okay. But again, it was a beautiful place. And at the very beginning, so this is back in 2003, I started designing the new studio. Let's see, 3, 4. So open up in 2005. But since 2003, I've already been thinking about air quality. I've been thinking, because I lived in a submarine for 4 years, and air quality is important. I was thinking about water quality. I mean, I kind of get the importance of water quality. You can't bathe in the water in Houston. And if you are, you got to change that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about solutions going forward. Not today. I'm just still giving you a backstory. There's a lot of people who've never met me, have no idea who I am, have no idea, who do I think I am to solve this big challenge. So these are some of the stories that I think provides you the context of who I am and how I got here. So, and since there's not a whole lot of people that have tuned in yet, I'll be sharing this on a regular basis. One, to practice, right? But also to really, just to pull back the curtain, let you know who I am, and maybe I've got some things that are worth listening to, and some strategies and some tactics that could be helpful to protect and restore the health of your children and your grandchildren and your great grandchildren, and if you're interested, even yourself, right? So the yoga studio was truly an amazing experience, and we literally tens of thousands of people came through the studios, and we got to see chronic diseases reversed, chronic injuries reversed. But I also saw a number of clients who hit plateaus. You know, we were offering massage therapy and coaching therapy and nutrition therapy. Um, you know, and there were still people like with all these pieces of this puzzle. I was a blood type, what is it? Peter Adamo, Diadamo, I think is his name. Blood type diet, I thought was a big thing. I really liked it. I love the idea of it. I don't think it holds much weight, scientific weight these days, and so I discarded that. But at the time, it sounded compelling, interesting, and so anyway, plateaus. Like, so there's something missing. I didn't have all the answers. I had a lot of them. I mean, I saw miracles. We all saw miracles. The staff at Express Hot Yoga saw miracles. It was truly amazing. But it was towards the end of 2011 that I was feeling burned out. Had a bit of an existential crisis. I just was like, yeah, the yoga thing is great. It's beneficial, but there's more. There is more to this equation. And I think of my father and like how he could have benefited from the breathing practices that we were teaching people, from the movement practices we were teaching people. It was like, yeah, this would have been helpful had I known this, back in 94, 95. But, as things progress, I'm feeling, my goodness, those of you that done startups, I mean, just you work your tail off, right? Nonstop. And there were some other backstories, and the Bikram yoga community was kind of falling apart. Bikram tried to franchise and get everybody to sign these crazy contracts, and nobody was having it. Like, we're not doing it. And I had tried to open a studio in Pearland and spent a bunch of time, energy, and effort to do that. And that got nixed by, local owners that decided they didn't want, somebody from the north taking over the south, right? And so, it was nastiness in the Bikram yoga world. And any of you that know the Bikram yoga world, you get it, right? A lot of backbiting, lots of competition. Shouldn't be, but there was. But when Bikram pulled out this idea to do the franchise, that was the beginning of the end, for sure. Beginning of the end. And so, yeah, there's another story. I'm not going to share it with you today. We'll talk about it maybe another time if it comes up, if it's important. But it was the time I started looking at movies like Dirt and getting into permaculture, looking at regenerative agriculture, again, back in 2011. That's whenever I'm like, there's more to the story. Started thinking about Hippocrates' let food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food. Thinking about gut health. This is before, people even really discussed the microbiome, right? Everybody's like, oh, the microbiome. Well, at the very beginning, it's like, when you learn about it for the first time, it's like, it's the real deal. It's like, this is really important stuff. And we're still ignorant about it, right? There's these waves. Everybody talks about it for a while, then nobody talks about it, then everybody forgets that it even existed. I'm like, it's crazy. So I knew there was something more, and that's what inspired me to create what I called an off the grid, so completely untethered from the water system, the electrical grid, the food grid. I mean, literally untethered, so off the grid. Children's wellness and education village. And I had this crazy thought, right? Another crazy thought. What if we could teach children through the life sciences? I mean, like, I really am a huge fan of science and STEAM science, especially science, technology, engineering, art, and math. I think that's the key, the future. Einstein, others, this is what we teach. STEAM powered solutions. We provide STEAM powered solutions to humanity's most audacious challenges. Like, this is the way we get there. It's not like one path or one thing or one. I mean, it's like it requires all 5 of these elements to get us to where we want to go. So I've been working on this and thinking about it and designing it. I mean, in fact, I'll pull it out next time. I've got a schematic that my good friend architect kind of pulled together for me because I was trying to raise some money to get this thing off the ground. And then February 11th, so this was fall of 2011. I was thinking about this. And then on 2012, that's when I discovered, or, taught my hot class, the Express Hot Yoga class. And CJ Haynes posed the question, why are kids getting sicker and sicker and sicker at younger and younger ages with a chronic disease that was once reserved for the elderly? My response, chemicals, air, food, water. Solve for that, you solve for chronic disease. June 6th, 2012, a few months shortly after that initial question, metaphorically burned my boat. Chose to give Jennifer, my wife and partner at the time, the yoga studio. I took the house and was going to go off and launch this little business venture in the back of the Woodlands. That venture, this 5 acres that we had planned, fell through, didn't work out. The couldn't do a deal with the owners at the time. And so I ended up moving to Ohio and started the water filtration business there. So I was there for about a year, ended up coming back, built the first little facility to build this. Again, I don't want to gloss over the water filtration system because this may be one of the most important things that you can do for your family's health. If you own a house, it's imperative that you filter, purify, and sanitize every drop of water that comes into your home. And I would go as far as to say through your sprinkler system as well. That taking it upon yourself to remove the chemicals out of the water so that everything that leaves your house is cleaner than it was when you got there. This is the scalability of how we solve these problems. So, we assess what's in the water. We then design a system specifically to remove those harmful chemicals and contaminants, which there are many. This is an 8-stage system that's designed to take out the widest spectrum of harmful chemicals and contaminants of any system on the planet, followed by a purification system, sanitation system, where we're killing all biology, right? And then, that this is called a point of entry. So we are filtering all the water coming into the home. And then inside the home, we deploy what's called point of use water filtration. That's, filters underneath your sinks and then in your shower, which is critical. You got to do both point of entry and point of use. And so yeah, I mean, like because I knew water and look, here's how this system worked. This system, when water, those of you from Houston, you'll get this immediately. You draw a bath of water, a bathtub, draw a bath. The water is yellowish, greenish, brownish, disgusting water. It's disgusting. If you think about it, we're at the end of the sewer line. If you think about our water comes from upstream. You just think about all the people and pesticides and herbicides and automobile fluids. And I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? All the chemicals people are buying and dumping down their drains, it becomes our drinking water. And that system that we're using is not fit is not removing the contaminants that need to be removed to be exposed to the water, much less even drink the water or cook with it. For sure, expose our babies to it, right? So develop this system, powerful system, removes the contaminants. Started manufacturing them, installed a few, and then I pulled back another curtain. And this was a curtain of electric fields, magnetic fields, and microwave radiation. Oh my! And that's where I'm gonna leave today's story, because that's a whole nother chapter that is it's going to take more time. And we're already at a good hour, which is, this is longer than I want, but as long as I feel inspired to share the story, I'm going to continue to share it, continue to, just to communicate some of the backstory, which is important. And again, we're still bridging the gap between me introducing myself to you, knowing, well, how did you learn or earn what you're preaching? I mean, who are you to tell me what I should be doing? Well, hopefully through the convention of storytelling, I'll be able to share with you where I've been, what I've learned, what I've discovered along the way. And as we move through this journey, my technology will get better, my lighting will get better, my switching will get better. And so thank you for your patience. I know that there's a few of you out there that are tuning in. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. I can't tell you how much it means to me that you're taking the time to leave a comment in the comment section. And yeah, so thank you for that. I should be so lucky to have more friends that valued our relationship, that they would actually be willing to take the time out to say hi, to check in, to leave a comment, to support this endeavor, whether you think I'm delusional or not, right? If you're my friend, then hopefully you'll go, I'll support you. I'll leave comments. I'll say hi. I'll check in. In fact, if you really want to support me as I'm telling the story, jump in and kind of leave comments according to the story, right? So kind of real time, like, oh, I remember that. I don't remember that. That's interesting. That's not interesting. I want to know more about that. I don't want to hear that ever again. I mean, that's helpful. The more feedback I get, the more I can fine tune this. And so partly is I'm going to continue to share the story. What we did yesterday, over the way, check out yesterday's episode. If you haven't watched it yet, check it out, because I did a major rework of the entire studio. So I was set up for the big, the launch of the Audacious challenge, and was using my green screen and a bunch of lighting and all this stuff. It was my first experience. It was crazy. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I mean, 3 weeks from like no real experience to somehow thinking I could pull off a full-blown multi-day, multi-event per day live stream. Oh man, I mean, those were 20-hour days. I think there was one, maybe 2 nights where I didn't sleep. So for 3 weeks, 20-hour days. I don't recommend it. In fact, Einstein Mothers recommends minimum of 6, ideally 8 hours of sleep, and then ideally going to bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock every night, and getting up at 4:30 every morning. So I'm now getting back on track. It's taken 3 days. It's been whatever, this is day 9, so 3 days, and I feel like I'm coming back to normal. So up until like my brain I had COVID brain. It wasn't working, right? So things are firing off again, and I'm now going, okay, what do I do next? So before I let you go, let me just maybe kind of paint a picture of where we are going with this. This is not just a podcast of me reliving a bunch of stories. This new podcast, Einstein Mother's Daily Microdose, is designed to give you, share with you what I'm calling the secret solutions to protect and restore the health of your children. And eventually we'll be getting it down to these micro habits that we need to do to begin to see the benefits and improvement in our health quality, right? And then hopefully, as we improve our health quality, it will also extend our health length. In total, that is longevity, right? Not only the quality of life, but the quantity of life. So longevity. And so what I'm preparing now is I'm preparing the social media platforms, which, by the way, aren't done. Like I had no idea. Maybe thank God, right? Because I'd never gone live if I knew all that needed to be done. And so I've got to work on the platform. So whenever you guys, as we begin to get more people into the community, that we can engage them with meaningful content and a path for them to begin to to learn, do, and teach for themselves. So in the next week or so, I hope to be revealing the big announcement of this new thing that we're going to be launching, that I'm excited about, and I'll just kind of start planting some seeds now. But this was the vision from the very beginning, and I didn't get a chance to share the whole story with everybody on the initial challenge. I just ran out of steam. I never completed my presentation. I think I'm still maybe halfway through the presentation even yet. But I did create a lot of footage. My plan right now is to take that footage and to bundle it up into 15 and 30-second little segments, and then be able to tell this story that you've set through an hour and an hour or so, to be able to tell that story in shorter bites, and then following the advice of my all-time favorite marketing guru, Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. He's got a pretty solid plan, right, of how to get your message in front of the audience. And it's not this long form. I mean, my goodness, those of you that suffer through this amount, bless you. But it's not this message. This long format will never reach the audience that needs to hear this, which is this current generation. So my goal, and I think there'd be enough content, like even in these sessions here, taking these old stories, bundling them up, really, coming up with those meaty hooks that gets people's attention, that hopefully drives traffic. But for now, I'm developing those. It's going to take a little bit to get them all chopped up and packaged up for Facebook Reels and I don't even know if that's right. Facebook and Instagram. I think they both have Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and then also a little more sophisticated version for LinkedIn. So those are the 5 platforms, and the goal, it's 10 unique pieces of content per day across 5 different platforms. So you're really getting the message out there in front of people. And then, and I think I should, my goal, we'll see, but I think there's a potential for 300 to 500, 15-second shorts. If you do the math, it's not a lot. And so to be able to pack that up, deliver it, and once that's in place, I'll have a good 30 days worth of content to share. While I'm preparing the platforms, when people go, hey, this sounds great, where do I find out more? When they come to the site, then we can engage them with the content to hopefully move them forward. The landing page, we'll be using that landing page to redo this whole thing again, new and improved. And my hope is we can do it towards the end of July. If I have enough money, it probably works out better in August. But it's really, we're down to that, whether or not I have the budget to be able to, keep the lights on between now and then. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your comments. I'm doing this every day, Monday through Friday, not every day, Monday through Friday, 10:30, 5 a.m. And I'll continue and pray to get better. I aspire for this work to have a meaningful impact on people's lives. I mean, I dedicate this work to eradicate pain and suffering and misery of chronic disease, that our children no longer have to suffer. And but it's only going to happen through brilliant-minded mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers who hear this word. You have an open heart. Your cup is empty. You're looking for solutions. I know you are. Because I know I was. And I've been where you are now. And so there's more to come. Much. And I'm eager to see how the sound works out, because the lavalier mic yesterday was horrible. So if you go back and watch tomorrow, it's going to be it's not perfect, it's not great, but hopefully there's good information. I kind of gave you a back end tour of like what we did and what we changed. I have not yet posted the before. I shot a before, and then I worked like 8 hours, 10 hours all day until 2 o'clock in the morning to get things set up. I mean, literally dismantling everything, reassembling everything. It took some time, energy, and effort, to say the least. But I think it's good. I still got technology to work out. There's still more pieces here to work out, and I may kind of jump on more frequently to do little shorter pieces. That's part of my thought. Right now, I'm just recovering from a 3-week Herculean task to do the launch. I'm feeling better. My brain's feeling better. I've got a meeting today with the Geek Out Academy to figure out what the next plan is, figure out how we move this thing forward. So doing that today, figuring out budget stuff, and moving the project forward. Thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, if not before, tomorrow.